I do have some questions that I will submit for the record. I just have a couple of comments, and I hope I have time to get to a question on the 25-year planning horizon. But I want to give a little context, just as the ranking member did. First, in the last 100 years, we've had 3 supermajorities, all Democratic. The first gave us the New Deal, the second gave us the Great Society, and the third gave us Dodd-Frank and the Affordable Care Act. I'm new to this process, but I'm a business guy, and I'm looking at this thing, and a lot of the responsibility for this current financial catastrophe we can lay at the feet of those 3 supermajorities. But I will tell you the irony is that they haven't achieved a lot of the goals that we had set for them, even when they were imagined many years ago, and that is to help the people who need help the most. And those are the people, Ms. Weinstein, I agree with you. One of my first jobs was in a Head Start program. The people in most jeopardy because of our intransigence in Congress are the people who need help from the safety net. However, what we've got right now is a system where today the poverty rate's the same as it was when the Great Society was signed into law. We've got, in the last 6 years, we've spent $21.5 trillion running our federal government. That's so large, Mr. Chairman, it's hard to relate to that. What I can relate to is the fact that of that $21.5 trillion, we've borrowed $8 trillion of that. Now, in 2000, the year 2000, we had $6 trillion, $5.5 trillion of debt. By 2008, we had $10 trillion. As the ranking member rightly pointed out, probably largely due to 2 wars. However, since then, we're on track since 2010 to more than double the debt by the time this administration leaves office. The budget process does not produce a budget, as we in the business community know it. Dr. Holzigan, I agree with you. The reason I applaud it is that you called that out. This is not a budget process. We've got a situation right now, literally today, where we have passed a budget this year, as we call it. We've gone through an authorization process, and here we are in the appropriation process, and yet one side, in a partisan way, is blocking those very bills, which 11 of the 12 appropriation bills were passed in a bipartisan way in committee. One party is deciding that we're going to block those from even getting to the floor to have debate. This process doesn't work. The people back home know that, and it's time to do something about it. But let me just remind everybody, when the Budget Act, when this budget process was put in place, in 1974, the debt was 32% of our GDP, full debt. In 2000, it was 55%. Right now, it's a little over 100% if you include the $4 trillion that's owed to the various parts of the government. It seems to me that with only a system that's only worked 4 times in the last 40 years, Mr. Chairman, we have got to change the process. I think all 3 people here with different perspectives are saying the same thing, and I applaud your testimony today. Mr. Peterson, I'm going to run out of time, but I really want to ask you, the 25-year planning horizon is very intriguing to me. On the one hand, I agree 100%, because if you look at the mandatory expenditures over the next 10 years, they double. Over the following 10 years, they quadruple. That runs away from us. So while I hear one side beating their chest about our deficits are at an all-time low, well, I understand what the math is, but the debt continues to spiral out of control. My only problem with the 25-year planning horizon is it seems to me we need to have 2 things. If you have a 10-year or 25-year planning horizon that allows us to spend money now and save it later in the 25-year planning horizon, that's a problem. I see it even in the 10-year horizon. So it seems to me we need to do what most corporations do in the world, and that's look much shorter term in terms of expenditure planning with a 3-year budget and a 25-year strategic plan to look at these important dynamics as they come at us, particularly in our crisis here with the mandatory spending and the people we're putting in jeopardy. Would you respond to that?
Well, listen, I think looking out 25 years doesn't mean you only look at the 25th year. You've got to look at the path from here to there, clearly. And as I said, also setting medium and long-term goals will be part of the process. So if you've been in business, you know you don't just look at the 5th year, you look at every year, for example, on a 5-year plan. And lastly, I would say budget enforcement is...
But we don't really do that. This budget does not do that. I agree with you 100%. If we did it properly, it wouldn't be a problem. We don't do that. A lot of what we do is we'll spend the money in the first few years, but we'll save it in the last few. Then the problem is we roll into the next year, and now everything is forgotten. All bets are off, and here we go again. So if we go to, I agree with you, we need a longer-term perspective, but address these shortfall
Well, I think it comes to the third point I was making about budget enforcement. We've got to make sure we're staying on that path. So if you agree on a long-term path, you agree on a set of goals and objectives, you got to make sure you're meeting them along the way. And I think we can't have the dessert before the vegetable, so to speak, and have all the easier things to do and delay that and then delay that and further. So we've seen kicking the can down the road for a long time, and we need. enforcement measures to make sure we stay on that path.
I'm out of time. I've got other questions. I'm going to hang around, Mr. Chairman. I hope to be able to ask Dr. Holziken and Ms. Weinstein a couple of questions as well, but thank you.